What's up everybody, it's Victon, here with my second League starter build guide for 3.15 Expedition League, the Toxic Rain Raider or Deadeye. Once again proving to be a top tier League starter skill, if not the absolute best one out there overall. With all the talks of damage being tuned down in general, and with looking at the patch notes and so many gems being nerfed, in my opinion the best way to approach a League start situation, or if this is your first character of the League in general, is to play a build that has held up to the test of time, League after League, and that is certainly the case with Toxic Rain. I know a lot of you might have already played this in the past, even maybe multiple times, and there's tons of different versions of this build, but while some people might be a bit burnt out on it, you certainly cannot deny that it's just an amazing League starter. It's incredibly cheap, and even solo sell found possible to get going all the way up to the most difficult mapping content there is. And not only can it just do that content, but it is speed running through all of that content so much faster than any other build. And as you scale the gear up, you can start taking out even the toughest bosses out there for much cheaper compared to other popular builds. And while it does put out moderate amounts of damage, it does come with great defenses as well, where you basically never take damage in the first place, and if you finally do, it's significantly reduced damage. Now, to mention the patch notes briefly, we did get some damage losses like most every other build, but honestly I think we're in a pretty good spot here, and we're going to be totally fine with this League start. Crafting the medium to high budget bow will be a bit different now, but not really enough to be able to complain about. So overall, not too affected by the patch notes outside of losing ailment immunity and some onslaught effect on Raider, which does suck, but we'll get by just fine. Now, before we get too far into the guide here, I wanted to mention a few things. First is, of course, with any build that's been popular so long, it's already gotten tons of great guides out there for it. I personally took a lot of inspiration from Remy's absolutely amazing forum guide, which I'll link below, which you guys should definitely be checking out. What's different about this guide is I've compiled all my favorite aspects of other builds using Toxic Rain and put them into this single build. And I think what will help you guys out the most is I've created some really great leveling and League start resources for you guys. I'm going to be including two full gym leveling guides, one being a detailed version and one being a cheat sheet. I also have a POB with very detailed step-by-step guide on how to level your passives and your ascendancy. And lastly, I'm actually including a spreadsheet full of trade links on the exact items you want to buy for the low budget, medium budget, and high budget versions of the build. So you can always come in here and check back to this document and get your gear upgrades with a single click that's going to take you to the exact trade site and items that you want. I've tried to make it as new player and casual player friendly as possible. And even for the veterans out there, I always like saying this, getting everything that you need in one simple place just makes life so much easier. So that'll be mainly what this guide is about, going over the resources I have here. We don't do a super deep dive into the build itself, but as you've been seeing in the gameplay showcase, the build is such a fun and powerful character and super fast. And I promise if you guys end up playing this for your first character, you're going to have a super successful League start. And lastly, before we dive into the path of building, like always, I just wanted to mention that I do have a stream on Twitch, so if you guys ever have a question, feel free to come on over and ask away. I'm always happy to help you guys out however I can with any of my builds. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel, I also have a Patreon linked below, which is going to get you guys access to my community Discord, and I do personal build reviews there all the time. So if you ever have extra questions, you can come in there. And we also have a pretty good community in general, so you can just kind of hop in there, ask questions, and everybody's super friendly and will help you out. Alright, so enough of all that, let's hop right into the guide, and feel free to check the timestamps below if you want to skip around to certain parts of the guide. First and foremost, let's hop into path of building. Alright, and here we are. Like I said, we're not going to go crazy in depth with the actual build guide itself here, but what I am going to do is show you guys everything that you need to know to actually level this build up, to gear it out, all that good stuff, and I'm going to show you guys how to use this path of building and also the other kind of tools that I've given you guys. So let's start with the path of building here, and the most important thing to note is that I have gone through and I've shown you exactly what points to put into your passive tree as you level up, right? So you'll come down here and you'll click on all these and it shows you exactly how to level up the build. And it also shows you your ascendancy points down here, which ones to put in order, right? So your first lab, second lab, third lab, all that good stuff, all the way up to your final build. And I've also included a few different things in your final build. I've done no clusters, I've done it using one cluster, and I've done it using two clusters. So you guys can kind of, do the build as you progress your character. And it'll obviously give you more damage the more clusters you have. but it's just up to you, right? You can do a build with no damage and just have a little bit less DPS. It's totally up to you, right? Not too much to cover though on the actual build itself. We are going dodge and evasion. We're getting tons of dodge and evasion. And tons of evasion rating in general, right? So we can have a lot of evade chance. It's a really good combo to have so much evasion, so much dodge, spell dodge, attack dodge. We also have Wind Dancer. We also have a pretty unique setup with our Immortal Call, which is not really affected by the patch notes coming out. I know a lot of that got, nerfed and some craziness is happening, but I think we'll be okay here with our Immortal Call setup that we have going. And one thing to note, that did come from a guide that I've seen on the forum. So any of the guides that I use to kind of, learn from or put into my build, I'm going to have links to those in the description, because I definitely want to call out those guys that have included, that have kind of given me this inspiration before. So check that out in the description. I love forum guides. Go check them out if you want to. Perfect. So everything else here is really straightforward, guys. There's nothing crazy about this build. We are getting some elusive up here, so that's pretty nice. It's just another layer of defense. I think this build has like 5 different layers of defense. Super solid. Very easy to level up as well. I just did a level up test myself just 2 days ago. Super easy all the way to Act 10. Was a complete breeze. This might scare you guys, but don't worry at all. These are usually pretty cheap, the very large ring ones, and on top of that, as you can see here, I literally bought like one of the worst ones possible. It's 18 elemental resistances minus. The ones that are expensive are the ones that are closer to like, minus 10, minus 11, minus 12 elemental resistances. Those get a little bit more expensive, but you don't need to buy that. It's totally fine to buy a completely poopy one. Like, buy the cheapest one that you can get. It's probably going to be an 18 to 20, and that's totally fine because we get so much elemental resistances on our gear, because this is a League starter build, that we're not getting any crazy gear or anything like that. So we're able to get a lot of resistances on our gear pretty easy. So one thing I did want to mention about Raider, this is not an updated POB. I will update the POB for you guys once we actually get the updated path of building, but for now it will show you a couple things that is very sad. So let's go to it right here. So this rapid assault, so sad. We're losing that 50% increase onslaught effect, so feels bad. It's not anything to mega complain about. We're still getting onslaught, which is very nice. And then this you're still getting, right, which is very nice. So it's still a very tanky ascendancy, which is the reason that we're going Raider in this case. This one did get nerfed as well. Immune to elemental ailments while phasing. It's now 50% chance to reduce elemental ailments. So again, that sucks, but at the same time it's still okay. So I don't know, it feels bad, but it's also okay. I think we'll be totally fine as a Raider. I think we're still going to be very strong as a especially League start situation, and I'll show you the Deadeye build here in a second, but this is the Raider version. But now going back to this, the reason this is so important is it offers so much utility, right? We're going up here, this is so much damage. These 3 nodes right here, a ton of damage. This Shaper node right here is actually going to that regen 1% life. That puts us over the limit of having enough life regen to deal with Blood Rage. Blood Rage gives us a lot of attack speed, so I actually probably wouldn't use Blood Rage until you maybe get this, just because your life is going to be draining quite a bit. You can do it if you want to manage your life flask. It's just I don't personally like ever draining my life. So once I got that, I was able to not drain life. So important note there, but this one's actually pretty strong as well. Not a lot of people take this. 8% chance to gain a power frenzy and endurance charge on kill. While you're mapping, you're going to have full charges constantly. So super nice. And this is just a whole lot of attack speed. Same thing here, a whole lot of attack speed. Attack speed is very big in this build. The more toxic rains that we can throw out as fast as possible, the better and more damage we do. And this is just a little bit of life and some flask effect. So pretty good. And this, of course, like I said, like these nodes, anything where you can get skill effect duration is absolutely massive. Not only for the damage that it gives for your toxic rain, but also for that fortify combo that I was mentioning earlier. I'm sorry, Immortal Call combo, which we'll talk about here shortly. So increased duration, very big. So that's really the build here. Let's go ahead and go over to the skills section. Nothing too crazy. Again, this build has been played so many different times. This is the, I think I've played like 4 or 5 different Toxic Rain builds over my time in Path of Exile. This is the one that I have settled on as being my favorite. And like I said, I'll have a link below to the description, a link below in the description to this guy's guide, which is absolutely fantastic, which I chose some things from. But you can go through here, you can take a look at the skills. It's pretty straightforward. Wither totems, you know, we've got the Toxic Rain set up here. We did get some nerfs, right, along with everybody in the entire game. So we're going to be doing less damage, but at the same time, it's okay. We're going to be totally fine. I guarantee that we're going to be cruising and doing maps no problem. So I'm not too worried about this build losing a little bit of damage. Your auras here, we got Skitterbots, we've got Malevolence, Flesh and Stone, which I do not have checked right now. I would say that you can use Skitterbots or Flesh and Stone, right? So more damage or more tanky, you guys choose. That's what the reason I put that here. So you can either do that or you can do this. Don't do both. You're not gonna have enough mana for that. So that is all of the skills. Let's go over to the items. Now, all of these are super, super cheap. This is the most expensive one here, which is a bow that you can, like 1 exalts, right? The big thing that you're looking for here is gems, you know, socketed gems, socketed bow gems. And then you can even just craft chaos damage multi over time. One thing to note here is that they did change chaos damage over time multi. So any of the multis are now suffixes. So that is a change. That is a change that you guys want to pay attention to. I don't think it's really going to change that much about crafting the bow. I haven't sat down and looked at it. I need to do that. But from what I understand, it's not really going to change the bows too much. But this bow, it certainly won't change your first bow that you get. It won't change this bow at all. One thing to note here is the more attack speed you can get on this, the better. Like I said, attack speed's very, very good. Your quiver here, pretty basic. Like I said, you can even see on some of these items how much I spent on it. When I purchased it, 25 chaos. Nothing crazy. 5 chaos I spent on this, right? 7 chaos I spent on this. 40. Oh, I went crazy on this one. So you can kind of see here. It's just like I didn't spend a lot of currency on this build at all. 12 on the amulet, right? 16 here. So super, super cheap items. And we were still able to absolutely cruise in tier 16 maps, doing some pretty hard content, doing like, you know, maximum ultimatums. Back in when we were doing the ultimatum league, I could do all 10 waves, tier 16 juiced up map, no problem on this build with the cheap gear, which is just crazy to me. One thing, I always like getting Darkness Enthroned and throwing in some nice jewels in there. You guys don't have to. You can get like a Stygian Vise and 1 jewel. That's totally fine. If you need to get extra resistances, you can, but I like to get the Darkness Enthroned and resistances on there as well. If you get good enough jewels, which you can get for pretty cheap, you can get some nice extra stuff like Blind on Hit, which is pretty nice. And you can get just as much life and just as much resistances if you get the jewels for cheap. So not a bad choice here. The flask itself, I have actually kind of gone through based off of the nerfs that they've given to the flasks. I've gone through and I think this is the best setup for flasks going forward for this build. So these are the ones that I would definitely look at this and get the exact ones that I have here. So like a Stibnite flask with bleeding removal. And with the new changes, right, I can't remember which, there's a new orb that you can put onto flasks, and it makes it to where you use that flask when that certain condition happens, right? So on this one, you would put the one on where if you are bled, it uses the flask. So that's how you would do that. Like then the Jade flask, right? If you get a curse, it removes the curse. It uses the flask. Sapphire flask, it removes the freeze. So that's the reason I've set that up right there. And then Quicksilver flask feels bad that you can see that adrenaline, right? 25% increased move speed. They nerfed that so much. I think it's what, down to 12%. Feels bad. But I think it's still the flask to get just to make you go faster. So I do think that is still the call. It just feels bad that it's only going to be 12% as the extra on there. Not too bad. Not a crazy deal though. One important thing to note here, I will mention this, is I have a lot of minus to total mana cost. I am curious if this will be super expensive this league because of how expensive mana cost has gotten with all these skills. They have upped the mana cost on like every skill in the game. It blows my mind. I don't know why they did that. I don't agree at all. So I'm curious if this is actually going to be pretty expensive, this league. It's usually like 3 chaos, 5 chaos, but we'll see on that. I'll go back to my skills. I'm sorry, my items. And I will mention, which I didn't mention here, make sure you're crafting on these or buying ones with it already on there. It's a prefix, but non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost, right? On both your rings. You need it on both your rings and your amulet. So make sure you have an open prefix and you're either crafting that yourself or you're getting it purchased already with that craft on there. And like you can see here, I mean, I'm 16 chaos, 5 chaos, so it's not that expensive, but just make sure you're crafting that on there and on your amulet, and you have the replica Conqueror's efficiency. One thing to note, this is obviously a league starter, so it's all pretty cheap, but I would say a medium budget version of this, you could also get a Watcher's Eye with clarity, and on the clarity, it has a non-channeling skills have -10 to total mana cost while affected by clarity. So you could have like a level 1 clarity, and then that would, I think that makes the mana cost of your Toxic Rain like 3 back in the old days. I'm not sure what it's going to be now with all the crazy changes to mana, so that might be something you guys want to look for in the, like I would say, medium budget version. Again, I'm curious if that's going to go up in price too, so we'll just have to see. Everything else here is pretty straightforward. I'm going to link a couple crafting guides to the bow from Remy. He does awesome guides on this. Again, I'm going to link his in the description. I really want you guys to check out his guide. He has this awesome guide. But for the most part, his guides on the bow will probably still hold accurate. It's going to be a little bit different to craft them. I consider there as a cheap version, there's a medium version, and there's an expensive version. And he actually has videos of all 3 of those. There's like not even a point to me making them because his videos are awesome. So I'm just going to link those in the description for you guys. And it should still be accurate, sort of relatively accurate to how you're going to craft it in this league. There's been a few changes, but I think for the most part, it'll be about the same. So that's how we do that. Do note that in the notes section, we are going to have your gym leveling up guide. So if you wanted to stay in the POB to level up, you can absolutely do that. What I would, however, suggest, as you can see, I have quite a few links here. We have a custom loot filter. We have a written guide of this notes right here, which I'll show you here in a second. All the trade site item buying cheat sheet, all the goodness. So like I said, you can use this, but I would personally suggest going ahead and using this right here, and I'll walk you guys how to use this. So this is the what I would consider the more in-depth version of the leveling Toxic Rain Raider Deadeye Gym leveling up lift. So what we're going to do here is kind of go over how to use this, right? So underline equals quest reward. Bold is you're actually going to purchase that from the vendor. And I've also gone through and I've done exactly what level you're going to do this stuff at. Relatively, and the quest that it comes from, or maybe not necessarily the quest, but like kind of at what point in the act you're going to do it, right? So after Mudflats and Tidal Island, lower prison waypoint, stuff like that, right? So I'll just kind of walk through and show you guys. So level 1 Hillock, we're going to get Caustic Arrow as our reward, because it's underlined quest reward, right? We're going to get Puncher as a quest reward, Dash as a quest reward, Caustic Arrow we already have, Mirage Archer quest reward. Onslaught, we're going to purchase. It's bold, so we're going to purchase it from the gym vendor in that zone. Shrapnel Ballista, we're going to purchase it from the gym vendor. And that's pretty much how you use this. One thing that I do want to note here is Smoke Mine got absolutely butchered along with Flame Dash and all those skills, so I'm really not sure, you know, how good it's going to be, if we're still going to use it. I would go ahead and pick it up, guys. Test it out. If it's poo-poo, then just don't use it. Just maybe keep using Dash. It's up to you guys. I would say test that. Nobody really knows right now, so just kind of test it. Yeah, you can just kind of go down through here, and it's very straightforward on how you level this up. There's going to be, at certain points, I'll have notes for you guys, right? So at this point, drop your old auras and run Flesh and Stone for defenses, or Skitterbots for damage plus Malevolence, right? So I'll have some pretty good notes in here, and then notes at the very end. I would say this is actually one of the more simple builds to level up gym-wise. It's all very straightforward. You get most of them as quest rewards. We really don't have anything crazy going on. This is really only the crazy stuff, and you get this from the library quest. So make sure you guys do the library quest, so you can get these gems that you don't normally get as a raider, right? So get this stuff, and same thing with this right here: multiple totem, spell totem, wither, also important to get, but pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and move on to this page right here. So at first it might look a little scary, but it's actually fantastic, and I hope you guys like this. So basically what I've done is I've gone and every single item that you want, from a low budget to medium budget to high budget, every single item in every single slot I have trade links for. So we're going to give an example here. Quill Rain is going to be one of your first purchases as a Toxic Rainer. It's the best bow all the way up until maps, until you spend about 1 exalt on your first bow. Very, very good purchase. I think they're usually around like 10 chaos at a league start, so save up your currency, buy this first. It's going to be a massive damage boost for you because of how fast it is. 3 attacks per second. Just know that it's going to be a lot of mana, so I would definitely suggest having a mana flask while you're leveling and really being on top of the mana flask. But as you can see, you can kind of go through here, right? And you can see all of your items. If you want the next level bow, you would go in. If you just want to purchase it, here it is, purchase it right here, or you can kind of craft it yourself, obviously. A Kintsugi, if you wanted that, here it is right here, you could purchase that. Or if you wanted to do a rare one or just a basic rare one, click it right here. So I really try to make it as easy as possible for you guys, and even myself. I use these guys. I've done a few different builds now. I'm going to use them myself. I think it's really, really helpful. It makes your life so much easier. I've put notes in the section over here. Like for example, right on your amulet, your rings, you definitely want to start grabbing some int and some strength. So definitely read the notes here. Because they are pretty important. This build in particular is pretty low on int and strength, and we do need quite a bit of int and strength, so make sure you're getting those on your amulet, your ring, and your ring, just somewhere within those, maybe even your boots. Pretty important though. And then Poacher's Mark, so we'll actually go back and talk about that here in a second, but Poacher's Mark we're only using on the Deadeye build. You're not using Poacher's Eye on the Raider, and like I said, this is a guide for both Raider and Deadeye. So I'll go back to Deadeye here in a second, but I just wanted to mention that Poacher's Mark is really only used for Deadeye, so don't worry about that. Other than that, I have your clusters down here, your cheap clusters. Like I say, 8 to 9 passes is totally fine. The 9 passive ones are usually so much cheaper, and it's just 1 point loss basically, so really not a big deal. You can get that when you're kind of first starting, and then as you have more currency, you can go down to the 8 passive, totally fine. I have this, the second level of your large cluster, and then your big boy one. Same thing with the mediums. One thing to note about the mediums and the large is they did nerf a lot of the nodes, so we're going to lose some damage on that. For example, like if something had 10% multi chaos damage multi, it's going to go down to 5, so it's like a 50% nerf. It's not huge, but it's pretty rough, to be honest. But I think overall for our build, it's not going to affect us too much. I think we're still going to be really strong with this build. So the small cluster, I have made it a note here, right? So only get it if you're going to do the Kintsugi chest, right? So just read the notes. The jewels, cheap jewels, medium budget jewels. Here's that Reckless Conqueror's efficiency. It's like they're 10 to 20k. I'm so concerned that these are going to be really expensive now, so we'll just have to kind of follow that and check. The Thread of Hope, I said 10C to 1x, like I mentioned, that you can get a super poop one with minus 20 elemental resistance to be totally fine for 10 chaos, right? And if you wanted the one that's a little bit better, it's like up to an exalt, so really not too bad. Blood of the Karui, I'm gonna take this off. Or buy Forbidden Taste, hell no. So it makes me so sad. Forbidden Taste got butchered. I don't even want to talk about it. Never get Forbidden Taste flask again. Feels bad. Use Blood of the Karui. They're like 5 chaos, easy peasy for your life flask. Now this one was the suggestion from Remy. I love the guy. I used it and I fell in love with it. So the front line, let me just show you guys what it is, because it's kind of something that's probably not a lot of people have done in the past. It's a cluster jewel, small one, right? So you put it in the slocket, and then it's 1 point after the cluster jewel that you would select it. Adds veterans awareness. So basically what this means is we're using this in combination with your Immortal Call, because it's a guard skill. And it's a non-vol guard skill. So once you use the Immortal Call and you have that set up going, it's going to make you so tanky. So 10 all elemental resistances. So it's actually going to go up to 85 instead of 75. You're going to have 85 all elemental resistances while affected by a non-guard skill. So when your Immortal Call pops, bam, you have some crazy defenses, 20 extra additional physical damage reduction as well, which is massive. So very, very good. And the reason this is so good with this build is because, like I said, we have so much evasion and dodge chance. You're very rarely going to get hit in the first place, but once you do, then a couple things are going to happen. It's going to pop that Immortal Call, and you're going to have another damage layer, a defense layer, kind of happen when you take that hit. So from that point, you're not going to take any further big hits. So it's so many layers of defense, really, really good. These are usually pretty cheap, and pick it up, I don't know, as probably one of your maybe 4th or 5th items that you buy, but it's very, very good. The one thing that Remy did note with this is he probably suggested that you shouldn't use it until your Immortal Call is getting a lot of cooldown recovery speed, and I have to check on that because I know they nerfed a couple things. You're still going to use this combo. I'm curious if it's not going to be it's not going to be as good as it has been in the past, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to be good enough that we want to use it. But going back to what Remy said, 1.7 seconds, get as close to 1.7 seconds for the cooldown on your Immortal Call as possible. The closer you get to that, the less uptime that you have on the negative effect of this, which is 20% more damage taken if you have lost that skill or lost that buff recently. So we want to have as little time as possible to actually have that negative effect be on your character. And once you get close to that, the 1.7, you'll be totally fine. So I've used this. I absolutely love it. I think it's a very solid pick. Good job, Remy. You're the man. So we'll go back here. One other thing, that's what I think is pretty cool. Another Remy thing is aspect of the crab, which is, I think, really, really good. Let's go ahead and click on the notes here, and I'll show you guys what aspect of the crab is. Not a lot of people use this, so it's good to kind of show you guys. While active, you generate crab barriers, and each crab barrier grants additional physical damage reduction per crab barrier. So you're going to actually have up to 20% additional physical damage reduction. Now, the reason this is good is because, like I said, we're dodge and evasion, so we're very rarely going to be taking damage in the first place. And when we do finally take that damage, you're going to have 10 crab barriers, and you're going to have 20% additional physical damage reduction, so you're going to take less damage from that hit. So it's a super strong defense. I like this quite a bit. This would replace Flesh and Stone, right? So if you chose Flesh and Stone, once you get to the point where you can craft aspect of the crab on a piece of your gear, I would replace Flesh and Stone for this. I think this is better than Flesh and Stone. So wanted to show you guys that. And I think that probably covers it for everything else that you need. Looks like I have Blood of the Crew Eat twice here. I'm going to take that off. Not sure why that is on there. But I think that should be it, guys. Let's go over to the next item that we have for you guys here, and it is the custom loot filter. So I'm going to leave the link to this in the description below. You're going to go here to Toxic Rain Leveling. On my screen, it says edit, but on y'all's screen, it's going to say follow. So you're going to click follow. Make sure you're obviously logged in to your account, and you're going to hit follow, and it's automatically going to go to your Path of Exile. You're going to go into your settings, and you're going to go to your loot filters, and it's going to be in there. It's going to be called Toxic Rain Leveling. And basically what I've done is I've gone through, and here I'll show you guys on this sheet. This is the cheat sheet that I've made for you guys on the gym leveling. Like I said, there's a cheat sheet and there's a more in-depth, but I used this to put in my loot filter. So everything you need to level up this build is actually color coded in your loot filter, right? So in Act 1, all of the 3-link greens are gonna have like a green beam that comes up. It's a big old icon, and it shows you exactly the items that you need. It's basically just gonna help you spot these colors a lot easier on the ground. And it's gonna make your leveling experience so much better. I use these filters myself, and it makes your life so much better. So very, very important in my opinion to go ahead and use that. You guys don't have to. Y'all can use whatever leveling filter you want, or none at all. Totally fine. What I would say is probably around maybe when you get to maps, go ahead and drop this loot filter. Once you get to maps, you're probably not looking for colors anymore. So at that point, I would say turn the filter off and go to your normal filter, whether that be a never sync filter or just one that you've done yourself. Once you get to maps, go ahead and turn it off. And I have over here in this section, I've done the maps version. It switches a little bit, but I've basically given you your entire map setup as well, so you can kind of start planning for the colors that you need and for the exact skills. And again, this is the cheat sheet. It's not going to be as much detailed. It's got a little bit of details, right, like Hillock after title, that stuff, but it's not going to be as detailed as that other version. So like I said, if you want that other version, there's the link to it right there. There's a link to the custom loot filter, and in general, everything is going to of course be linked in the description below. So if you guys are interested in any of these, you can check those out. And I think that pretty much covers it for the build, guys. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoy this kind of new format that I'm doing for the League starters. I didn't go too much into the build itself. Let me actually, one thing that I do want to cover that I didn't cover, let's go ahead and go back. We're going to save this, and we're going to go over the Raider. There's barely any changes to the tree. In fact, I think there's almost no changes to the tree. It's literally just Raider instead, Deadeye instead of Raider. So let's just go over the actual Raider itself. I think there was actually no changes to Raider, so pretty solid here. I'm sorry, to Deadeye. No changes to Deadeye. I already mentioned the nerfs to Raider here. Basically, the difference between Deadeye and Raider, you're going to get more damage on Deadeye than you will on Raider, but it's less tanky. I would say probably once you're at the min-maxed version of the build, you're going to have enough defense to be totally fine with switching to Deadeye. As a league start situation, I personally suggest you guys go Raider. I think it's easier to level, especially getting that onslaught early. Like, that should be your first point. Getting onslaught makes you move faster, attack faster. It just helps you level significantly. But you know, once you get up to maybe the min-maxed version, you might want to consider switching over to Deadeye. You get so much extra damage. I think it's literally like a 20 to 30% overall damage increase compared to Raider, so it's a lot of damage. But I think that was the last thing I wanted to show you guys, was the Raider version. I will include both POBs, of course. It'll include the Raider version and the Deadeye version, so click whichever you guys are interested. Again, I suggest the Raider, but obviously do whatever you guys want. And I think that's everything that I had for you guys here on this guide. I do have a couple more League Start guides. If y'all are interested, check out my channel. And like I said, I will be streaming on Twitch. So if you guys have any questions, definitely on the build, like I said, because I didn't cover it as much. If you have any questions on the build, hop in my Twitch channel, ask away. Like I said, I am always happy to answer questions. That's one of my big things, is I really like helping people out. So come and ask away, and I will absolutely answer your question. That's all I got on this one, guys. I will see y'all in the next League Start guide. See ya.